The way most people clean their robot vacuum roller brush is slowly killing the motor, and a repair technician in Osaka showed me exactly why. I was describing my cleaning process for test units, and he just shook his head. "You're fighting the brush," he said. "You're not cleaning it, you're wrestling it, and the motor loses every time." That one sentence changed how I test and maintain every robot vacuum on this channel. In years of tearing these machines apart for reviews, I've seen more roller brush motors killed by the cleaning process than by actual wear, and a lot of the people who end up here are already seeing the symptoms: an error 2, a main brush jammed alert, or an E5 error code that sends you straight to the manual. Today, I'm going through the mistakes almost everyone makes when they clean a robot vacuum roller brush, the ones that quietly wear down the motor and the gear housing, and the corrected technique for each one, the version that treats the brush like the precision part it actually is, instead of something you just yank hair off of. Here's why this matters before we get into it. The roller brush motor is one of the smallest, cheapest feeling components in the entire machine, which is exactly why people treat it carelessly. It's also one of the most failure-prone parts across every brand, from iRobot Roomba J7 to Shark to Roborock S7 to Eufy, because it's constantly under mechanical load and constantly getting tangled. And if you're running a model with a rubber roller brush instead of traditional bristles, which more and more units are shipping with now, some of these mistakes hit differently, and I'll call that out as we go. Damage the motor through bad cleaning habits, and you're not looking at a quick fix. You're looking at a full roller assembly or motor replacement on a part that was never designed to be opened casually. While you're at it, a deep brush clean is also the right moment to empty the dustbin and check your HEPA filter. These are all part of the same maintenance window, and skipping the others while you're already in there is a common miss. If you're already mid-clean on your unit, here's where people go wrong from the very first step. Number 1. Pulling hair against the direction of the bristles. This is the single most common mistake, and it's the fastest way to clean the brush, which is exactly why it's so widespread. You grab a fistful of tangled hair and rip it off in whatever direction gets it off quickest. The problem is that roller brushes are built with bristles set at a specific angle and a specific rotation direction. Pulling against that grain doesn't just remove hair, it drags against the bristle base and puts uneven torque through the brush core. For rubber roller brushes, the same principle applies. Pulling debris backward against the fins can stress the rubber mounting and the axle connection. The corrected technique, and this is closer to how it's actually done in careful Japanese appliance repair shops, is to identify the rotation direction first, usually marked with a small arrow on the end cap, and always cut or slide hair off following that same direction. It takes a few seconds longer. The bristle base stays intact instead of loosening over time. Now that you know which way to work, let's talk about when you're allowed to touch the brush at all. Number 2. Cleaning the brush while it's still clipped into the housing. Most tutorials show someone flipping the vacuum over and going straight at the brush without removing it. Every bit of force from pulling or cutting hair travels straight through the axle into the gear teeth and motor coupling behind it, because the brush still has resistance from being seated in its mount. The fix is simple. Fully remove the brush from the housing before you do any hair removal at all. Once it's sitting free in your hand, any pulling force is absorbed by the bristles themselves, instead of the gear assembly behind them. Once the brush is out, most people reach for the wrong tool next. Number 3. Using a blade pressed straight down into the bristle base. Scissors and utility knives are the standard advice, and manufacturers do recommend them, but the way most people use them is the problem. Sawing straight down into the base to cut through a thick tangle nicks the bristles themselves and can slice into the rubber or plastic core the bristles are seated in. The better method is sliding the blade along the grooves the bristles are already arranged in, following the length of the roller, rather than cutting perpendicular into it, which is exactly what most manufacturer guides describe, but almost nobody actually follows once they're staring at a thick clump of hair. Here's a mistake that seems harmless and is actually one of the worst for the motor long term. Number 4. Spraying cleaning liquid or soaking the brush to loosen hair faster. It feels like a shortcut. Get the hair wet, it slides off easier. But the bearings and end caps that let the brush spin freely sit right at the ends of that roller, and most manufacturers explicitly warn against soaking or using harsh liquid cleaners anywhere near them, because moisture that gets into the bearing housing doesn't evaporate cleanly. It sits there and either washes out lubrication or causes corrosion over time. If you need moisture at all, a barely damp cloth on the bristles themselves, nowhere near the ends, and letting everything air dry completely before reassembly is the actual safe version of this step. Now here's the part where I want you to think about your own vacuum specifically, not just the general idea. You've probably done at least 2 of these 4 things without knowing it, because none of them look wrong in the moment. They all look like reasonable ways to get hair off a brush quickly. That's exactly why roller brush motors are one of the most commonly replaced parts across every major brand, even on units that are otherwise barely 2 years old. Number 5. Ignoring the end caps and bearings entirely. Most cleaning routines stop once the visible hair is gone from the main length of the brush, but hair and fine debris consistently migrate to the ends, where they wrap tightly around the bearing housings and end caps, the exact points where the brush connects to the motor's rotation. A brush that looks spotless in the middle can still be dragging against the motor because of buildup you can't see without checking both ends directly. Pulling the end caps off, or at minimum inspecting them closely, and clearing that specific area is a step almost every rushed cleaning skips. Number 6. Reassembling the brush facing the wrong direction. After all that careful cleaning, this is the step where people lose focus, because it feels like the job is basically done. Reversing the brush's orientation when you snap it back into the housing puts the same kind of sideways load on the gear assembly that pulling hair the wrong direction does in the first place. Just at the very end instead of the beginning. Match the rotation arrow or the notch alignment exactly the way it came out. Every single time, not just when you remember to check. Number 7, and this is the one that separates people who clean the brush once a month from people who do it every other week. Ignoring the anti-tangle guard or comb next to the roller, and neglecting the side brush. Most mid-range and higher-end units have a small comb-like guard positioned against the main roller brush, specifically to slice hair off during normal operation before it can wrap tightly. That guard dulls and clogs with lint long before the main brush usually needs a deep clean. And the side brush, the small spinning brush on the edge of the unit, collects its own tangle of hair and debris around its axle that feeds mess back toward the roller if you ignore it. Wiping the anti-tangle guard clean with a dry cloth on a weekly basis and checking the side brush at the same time is what actually reduces how often the full brush teardown is even necessary. And it's the step that gets skipped because it's boring and doesn't look like it's doing anything. And finally, the mistake with the longest-term consequences of all. Number 8. Never replacing the brush at all. People treat the roller brush like it's meant to last the lifetime of the vacuum, cleaning it forever instead of retiring it. But bristles wear down, lose their angle, and stop agitating debris properly well before the motor itself fails. And most manufacturers actually recommend replacing the roller brush every 6 to 12 months, rather than cleaning the same one indefinitely. Running an old, worn brush past that point means the motor works harder to spin something that's no longer doing its job efficiently. And on units rated at 2,500 pascals or higher, that extra load shows up even faster because the airflow demands are greater, which shortens the motor's life for a completely avoidable reason. That technician in Osaka was right about more than just cleaning technique. He said something else that stuck with me. You don't fix a machine by fighting it faster. You fix it by understanding which direction it already wants to move and working with that instead of against it. Every one of these 8 corrections is really the same idea applied 8 different ways. Stop fighting the brush, start reading which way it's already built to move, and the motor takes care of itself for a lot longer than you'd expect.